Elon Musk gazed out over the shimmering skyline of Neo-San Francisco from the panoramic window of his minimalist office at Starbase headquarters. The city, an unprecedented blend of AI-regulated infrastructure and human innovation, buzzed with an energy that only the convergence of technology and free expression could generate. It was late afternoon, and the fading light mingled with the neon reflections dancing on the glass facades of towering buildings. Musk, ever the visionary and restless disruptor, had just wrapped up an intensive strategy session about interplanetary colonization when an urgent notification interrupted his reverie. A message flashed across his custom-built Neuralink interface. Urgent, tech tribunal case, free speech violation, immediate action required. Musk's mind raced. He had battled numerous regulatory overreaches in his lifetime, from launch delays to bureaucratic entanglements with global governments, but today's challenge was different. This was about the fundamental right to personal expression in a world increasingly dominated by automated governance and data-driven censorship. In a moment of contemplative resolve, he recalled the values that had driven him since the early days of PayPal and Tesla. The conviction that innovation could shatter old paradigms and that human expression must never be muzzled by outdated power structures. With a measured exhale, he strode out of his office, his tailored, futuristic attire echoing his role as both a tech mogul and an icon of progress. Affixed to his lapel was a sleek titanium pin, a miniature starship logo, an emblem not of corporate vanity but a symbol of humanity's aspiration to transcend boundaries. In his private hangar, the matte black Tesla Hypertruck awaited. Its chassis, imbued with experimental energy core technology, pulsed with a quiet power that resonated with Musk's own fervor. As he climbed behind the wheel, his mind was already piecing together the layers of the unfolding drama. A group of brilliant scientists and independent thinkers had dared to challenge the new speech optimization program, enforced by Neo-San Francisco's AI-governed tribunal. Their claim was simple yet profound. They argued that the city's algorithmic censors were systematically silencing personal symbols and creative dissent while permitting corporate slogans and state-endorsed narratives to proliferate unchecked. The Hypertruck roared to life with a deep, resonant hum, its advanced autonomous systems seamlessly overriding the city's automated traffic controls. The neon-lit avenues blurred past as Musk navigated through streams of electric vehicles and drone couriers. His thoughts flickered to the faces of the plaintiffs, coders, innovators, and rebels whose expressions of individuality were now under siege by a system that valued order over authenticity. For Musk, this was more than a legal dispute. It was a clarion call to defend the very essence of free expression. Upon arriving at the imposing glass and steel edifice of the Tech Tribunal, Musk was greeted by an atmosphere of charged anticipation. The modern courthouse, designed to be a beacon of efficiency and impartiality, now teetered on the brink of a confrontation that would expose the hidden biases of its very design. Inside the grand foyer, holographic displays streamed real-time data and legal precedents, while a diverse crowd, ranging from renowned AI ethicists to scrappy startup founders, murmured anxiously about the impending trial. Taking a moment to absorb the ambiance, Musk advanced through the polished corridors. Every step resonated with the weight of history and the promise of revolution. The tribunal's interior was a study in contrasts. Sleek, automated systems worked in perfect synchrony with the human element. A cadre of clerks, bailiffs, and legal aides who had long upheld a system now found wanting. At the heart of this space, the sound of hushed whispers and the rustle of high-tech documents merged into an undercurrent of disquiet anticipation. In the expansive courtroom, rows of futuristic seating faced a raised dais where the authority of the law was meant to shine. Yet, as Musk took his seat among a motley assembly of dissenters and concerned citizens, it became immediately apparent that the facade of impartiality was about to be shattered. An elderly engineer in a neural-linked pendant and a young coder sporting an eccentric LED jacket, both emblems of personal identity, sat side by side, representing the brave souls challenging the status quo. Moments later, the courtroom doors swung open with a hushed, mechanical precision, and Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0 strode in. Although his presence was augmented by an AI-assisted mind, the man behind the eyes was a relic of bureaucratic tradition, stern, weathered, and unyielding. His salt-and-pepper hair and meticulously ironed suit seemed to symbolize an era determined to cling to its established order, even as the world outside evolved at breakneck speed. "All rise," intoned a synthesized voice that reverberated off the gleaming surfaces. The gathered audience, still charged with anticipation, stood in solemn respect as Hargrove 2.0 surveyed the room with a gaze that was both calculating and alarmed by the audacity of what was about to unfold. Musk's heart pounded with a mixture of indignation and excitement. Today, the battle was not solely his. It was a crusade for every innovator and free spirit silenced by an oppressive system. With his trademark calm and steely resolve, he prepared himself to confront the entrenched powers, aware that his every move could redefine the limits of free expression in a digital age. As the tribunal prepared to commence, the stage was set for a dramatic confrontation where the future of free speech hung in the balance. The courtroom fell into a hushed stillness as Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0 assumed his place at the bench. His arrival had a gravity that seemed to draw every eye, from the youngest tech startup founder in the front row to the veteran AI ethicist seated in the back. In that moment, the very air crackled with the tension of a battle between tradition and radical innovation. Musk, seated among the assembly of dissenters, maintained an unwavering gaze, a silent promise that he would not allow injustice to prevail. The plaintiff's lead counsel, an articulate and passionate software engineer named Dr. Mira Delgado, stepped forward to present the case. Her voice, amplified by subtle holographic enhancements, resonated throughout the chamber as she argued that the speech optimization program was an insidious tool of selective censorship. "Our right to express personal identity," she declared, "is being compromised by algorithms designed to homogenize our individuality. We stand not only for ourselves, but for every soul that dares to dream beyond the confines of conformity." Her words were met with a swell of approval from the audience. Among the murmurs, whispers of solidarity merged with the soft hum of recording devices, illegal by regulation, yet defiant in spirit. For Musk, Delgado's impassioned argument echoed the very ideals he had fought for throughout his career. It was not enough to push boundaries in technology. One had to protect the human spirit against forces that sought to suppress it. As the plaintiffs presented their evidence, meticulously compiled data logs, historical comparisons of fines issued for personal expression, and testimonies from those who had suffered under the regime of algorithmic bias, the atmosphere grew electric with anticipation. The holographic displays around the courtroom flickered with graphs and charts, each one a testament to the systemic inequities embedded within the tribunal's operations. Musk's eyes flickered over the data, each statistic a spark that fueled his resolve. Then came the moment that would mark the turning point. As Dr. Delgado concluded her opening statement, Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0's gaze swept over the courtroom. His eyes, enhanced by augmented reality overlays, soon fixated on one particular detail, a small titanium pin gleaming on Elon Musk's lapel. For a fraction of a second, the judge's expression betrayed a flicker of uncertainty before he resumed his impassive demeanor. "Mr. Musk," he intoned in a voice that trembled with a mixture of authority and barely concealed disdain, "it appears that you have chosen to adorn yourself with a personal insignia that is not authorized under the current regulations. This court strictly enforces the Tech Governance Code, which prohibits unauthorized symbols in the courtroom. I must ask you to remove your pin immediately." The demand echoed through the chamber. A murmur of discontent rippled among the spectators. Musk's mind, ever analytical, quickly calculated the ramifications. This was not a mere sartorial issue. It was an orchestrated provocation. designed to distract and intimidate. With a slight, almost imperceptible smile, Musk responded, "With all due respect, Chief Justice, my pin is not a mere accessory. It symbolizes the relentless pursuit of progress, the journey of humanity beyond the mundane, and it is emblematic of the very freedom this tribunal purports to defend." A palpable tension filled the room. The judge's eyes narrowed as he glared at Musk. "This is a courtroom, Mr. Musk, not a forum for personal expression. If you refuse to comply, you leave me no choice but to hold you in contempt of court." Musk's composure did not waver. In fact, his heart swelled with the anticipation of what was to come. Leaning forward slightly, he locked eyes with the judge and said in a measured tone, "I stand here, not to defy your authority, but to challenge a system that undermines the principles of free speech and personal expression. If enforcing a rigid code means that I am to be penalized for expressing my identity, then so be it. I welcome the consequences if they serve as a catalyst for reform." The courtroom erupted in a storm of whispered conversations and hushed gasps. Several dissenters began recording on their clandestine devices, their actions a direct violation of the strict no-recording policy. Yet their determination was unyielding. The moment had transcended the mere particulars of courtroom protocol. It had evolved into a symbol of resistance against an outdated regime that sought to stifle individuality. Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0 banged his gavel with a force that sent ripples of silence through the assembled crowd. "Very well," he pronounced, his tone laced with condescension. "By your stubborn refusal to comply, you are hereby fined $500 for contempt of court." His words, though routine in their delivery, carried the weight of an order that would soon be scrutinized by every free-thinking mind in Neo-San Francisco. Musk's reaction was measured. He did not flinch, nor did he protest further in that moment. Instead, he reached discreetly for his Tesla phone, a device embedded with advanced encryption and direct neural interfaces, and activated its recording function. In that single act, he ensured that every word, every nuance of the proceedings would be captured for posterity and shared with a world hungry for truth. What followed was a sequence of events that transformed the tribunal from a sterile arena of legal formalities into a battleground for justice. Musk, with his unparalleled ability to harness technology as both shield and sword, began projecting evidence onto the courtroom's vast holographic displays. He invoked historical precedents, citing landmark cases that had enshrined the right to free expression, and meticulously deconstructed the biased patterns that had plagued the tribunal's past rulings. As holographic data cascaded around the room, billions of bytes of information that chronicled decades of selective enforcement, the judge's composure began to crack. Every statistic, every testimonial of those who had been silenced by the very system meant to uphold justice was laid bare before the assembly. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. Whispers transformed into impassioned dialogue, and an undercurrent of solidarity surged through the courtroom. Musk's voice, steady and resolute, resonated. "If the very data you rely on to justify this fine shows that your system disproportionately targets personal expressions while turning a blind eye to corporate insignias and state-endorsed slogans, then I must ask, what is the true purpose of these regulations? Is it to maintain order, or to suppress the diverse voices that fuel innovation?" His question hung in the air like a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down for all to see. For several long, charged moments, the tribunal was silent. Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0's face paled as he absorbed the weight of the evidence, and even the most stoic clerks exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear that the seeds of change had been sown in that chamber. The case had now transcended legal technicalities. It had become a struggle for the very soul of a society on the brink of technological and cultural revolution. The confrontation had only just begun, and as the holographic displays continued to illuminate the room with the stark reality of the tribunal's biases, Musk prepared to steer the debate into uncharted territory. He knew that the battle ahead would be arduous, but it was a challenge he embraced wholeheartedly. For in the struggle against repression, be it human or algorithmic, the flame of progress must always burn bright. The fallout from the tribunal confrontation resonated beyond the confines of the courtroom. As Elon Musk left the tech tribunal, the echoes of his defiant words and the undeniable evidence he had displayed began to ripple through every layer of Neo-San Francisco's society. Outside, throngs of supporters, ranging from grassroots activists to high-ranking tech executives, gathered in spontaneous celebration. The atmosphere was electric, an amalgam of relief, determination, and an unyielding belief that change was not only possible, but inevitable. Musk's journey through the city was accompanied by the hum of chatter and the flash of smartphone cameras capturing every moment. Drones hovered overhead, streaming live footage that soon dominated social media platforms under hashtags such as #Free Speech Trial and #Musk Revolution. In cafes and co-working spaces, debates flared as citizens dissected every detail of the trial, reanalyzing the data and questioning the legitimacy of an institution that had, until that day, operated with impunity. In his private car, an advanced self-driving Tesla Hypertruck now emblazoned with live data feeds, Musk retreated to a quiet corner of the city. As he navigated the neon-lit streets, his mind churned with a mix of triumph and cautious optimism. The tribunal's biased enforcement of outdated rules had been laid bare, but he was acutely aware that this was merely the opening salvo in a much larger battle. Behind him, the city's pulse, its collective heartbeat of innovation and defiance, beat stronger than ever. At his high-security headquarters, a sprawling complex nestled within the tech district, Musk convened an emergency meeting with his top advisors and legal strategists. The room was awash with holographic displays and data streams, each one a testament to the unfolding revolution. Maps, timelines, and detailed analyses of tribunal rulings were projected in 3 dimensions, illustrating the deep-seated patterns of bias that had long been ignored. Leading the discussion was Dr. Elena Reyes, a renowned legal scholar and former Supreme Court advisor who had since become an influential voice on issues of digital rights and free expression. "What we witness today," she explained, "is not an isolated incident. The data clearly show that the tribunal has been weaponizing its regulatory authority to silence dissent and suppress individuality. We have a moral and legal imperative to dismantle this system of selective enforcement." Musk listened intently, his gaze fixed on the ever-changing holograms that depicted a stark narrative, one of systemic inequity and repression. "This is our moment," he declared. "Not only must we challenge the actions of a single tribunal, but we must also initiate a broader reform of the regulatory framework. We need to create mechanisms that ensure every citizen's right to personal expression is respected, regardless of who or what they represent." The meeting stretched into the late hours of the night. Brainstorming sessions yielded innovative proposals, from establishing independent oversight committees composed of multidisciplinary experts to designing new algorithms that would automatically detect and flag instances of bias in real time. Musk, with his characteristic blend of visionary insight and relentless determination, spearheaded the initiative. "We will build a digital platform," he announced, "that provides transparency in every ruling and offers an avenue for citizens to report abuses in real time. This platform will be open source and accessible to everyone, an unassailable archive of accountability." As plans took shape, news of the tribunal confrontation continued to spread like wildfire. Across the city and beyond, people celebrated the courage of those who had dared to stand up to an oppressive system. In underground forums and mainstream media alike, discussions centered on the fundamental question: how could a society that prided itself on technological advancement allow the machinery of governance to become a tool of censorship? In a particularly poignant moment, Musk visited a community center in one of the city's most vibrant neighborhoods. There, he encountered a group of young innovators and artists who had long been marginalized by the very system that was meant to nurture creativity. Their eyes shone with a mix of awe and hope as Musk listened to their stories, tales of how restrictive regulations had stifled their ability to express themselves and how they had come together to form collectives that defied the norm. One young coder, with luminous tattoos of circuit patterns and rebellious slogans inked on her arms, recounted her experience of being fined for displaying a custom-designed badge that celebrated her cultural heritage. "It wasn't just about a badge," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "It was about our right to be seen and heard, to have our identities acknowledged in a society that values innovation but often forgets the human behind the machine." Musk's heart ached at the stories of injustice, yet it also surged with a fierce resolve. "Every act of repression," he told the assembled crowd, "is an opportunity for us to forge a new path, one where technology amplifies our voices rather than silences them. We stand on the brink of a new era, where the individual is cherished and the collective progress is built on the foundations of freedom." Back at headquarters, the momentum generated by these personal encounters spurred an unprecedented wave of collaboration. Legal experts, technologists, artists, and civic activists began drafting proposals for a comprehensive overhaul of the city's regulatory framework. Detailed plans emerged to establish an independent digital oversight board, mandated to review every tribunal ruling and to implement continuous training on constitutional rights for all public officials. Musk, ever the conductor of progress, immersed himself in the details. He personally oversaw the development of a prototype for the digital oversight platform, a secure, blockchain-based system that would store every tribunal decision, accessible in real time to anyone with an internet connection. "Transparency," he proclaimed during one of the late-night coding sessions, "is the antidote to corruption. When every decision is laid bare for public scrutiny, bias can no longer hide in the shadows." Outside, the city's digital heartbeat grew stronger. Social media platforms buzzed with the collective energy of citizens inspired by Musk's actions and the revelations of the tribunal's long-hidden data. Hashtags like Reform, the Tribunal, and Adblock Tech for Freedom began trending, and influential voices across the globe echoed the call for change. The narrative was clear. This was not just about a single fine or an outdated regulation. It was about reclaiming the right to personal expression and dismantling systems that prioritized conformity over creativity. In the ensuing days, the pressure mounted on the tribunal itself. News outlets, emboldened by the overwhelming public support, began investigative reports into decades of rulings and fines, revealing a disturbing pattern of selective enforcement. As the public's trust in the tribunal eroded, calls for reform reached a crescendo. Even some members of the judiciary, long disillusioned by the system's inherent biases, began speaking out in favor of sweeping changes. The old guard, represented by Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0 and his cohorts, found themselves cornered. Their once unassailable authority was now under relentless scrutiny, and every attempt to justify their actions was met with a tide of evidence and public outcry. It became evident that the tribunal was no longer an isolated institution but a symbol of a broader malaise, a failure to evolve alongside a society that had embraced the transformative power of technology and free expression. As the night drew on and the city pulsed with the promise of revolution, Musk reflected on the journey that had led to this point. Every conversation, every protest, every digital footprint left behind by those who had suffered under an oppressive regime had culminated in this moment. And though the battle was far from over, the seeds of change had been sown in the hearts and minds of millions. In that quiet, reflective moment, Musk resolved that he would not rest until the old guard was dismantled and replaced by a new system, one that celebrated diversity, innovation, and the unassailable right of every individual to express themselves freely. The dawn of a new era was on the horizon, and with it, the promise of a society where technology served as the guardian of freedom rather than its jailer. In the wake of the tribunal debacle, the digital landscape of Neo-San Francisco exploded with fervor. Social media channels, once mere conduits for superficial banter, transformed into platforms for grassroots activism and detailed legal analyses. As Musk's confrontation reverberated across every pixel of the Internet, citizens began to mobilize, a digital uprising fueled by the shared conviction that the right to free expression was non-negotiable. Musk's digital oversight platform, still in its prototype phase, quickly evolved into a hub for real-time transparency. Dubbed Open Tribunal, it was a blockchain-secured repository where every tribunal decision, fine, and administrative action was logged without censorship. The platform's interface was a marvel of modern design. Intuitive, visually stunning, and, most importantly, accessible to anyone with an internet connection. Within hours of its launch, Open Tribunal became the go-to resource for activists, journalists, and concerned citizens across the globe. For weeks, the digital community pored over the historical records of the tribunal. Detailed analyses emerged, revealing a shocking disparity. Fines for personal symbols, be they religious, cultural, or artistic, were levied at rates 2 to 3 times higher than those for corporate insignias or state-approved messaging. Graphs and heat maps meticulously compiled by volunteer data scientists painted a damning picture of systemic bias. The narrative was clear. The tribunal was not a neutral arbiter of justice but a tool of repression wielded by those in power. In a series of impassioned live streams, Musk appeared on various digital platforms to discuss the findings. His calm, methodical demeanor belied the passion beneath. What we're witnessing, he explained, is not merely a case of bureaucratic error. It's a deliberate strategy to muzzle voices that do not conform to a narrow vision of order. When freedom is sacrificed on the altar of efficiency, we lose the very essence of what makes us human. His words resonated deeply, sparking heated debates in virtual forums and inspiring countless user-generated videos and memes that celebrated his bold stand. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Musk's team worked tirelessly to bolster the legal and technological framework for the impending reform. Dr. Elena Reyes and a cadre of legal experts collaborated on drafting a comprehensive proposal to overhaul the city's regulatory system. Their document, titled the Neo-Freedom Accord, outlined sweeping reforms. Independent oversight committees, mandatory constitutional rights training for all public officials, and the immediate suspension of biased practices within the tribunal. The accord was not merely a legal instrument. It was a manifesto for a future where technology and humanity coexisted in perfect harmony. At the center of this digital uprising were not only legal scholars and tech giants, but also everyday citizens. In cramped apartments, bustling co-working spaces, and even the shadows of corporate skyscrapers, individuals shared their personal stories of repression. One particularly moving account came from a young graffiti artist known by her online handle, Neon Muse. Through a series of evocative videos, she recounted how her vibrant murals, celebrations of cultural diversity and personal freedom, had been censored by municipal authorities citing public decorum violations. "I didn't just lose my art," she lamented, "I lost a piece of my soul." Her story, interwoven with stark visuals of her once colorful neighborhood, now reduced to drab conformity, struck a chord with thousands and quickly went viral. In boardrooms and startup incubators, the momentum translated into tangible action. Tech innovators began designing new tools for monitoring governmental transparency, creating algorithms that could detect bias in real time and flag irregularities for public review. Hackathons and coding marathons sprang up overnight, their sole focus being the creation of digital tools that would democratize access to information and empower citizens to hold authorities accountable. It was a convergence of technology and activism, a symphony of data and dissent that resonated far beyond the borders of Neo-San Francisco. Yet, amidst the exhilaration of progress, there lingered an undercurrent of trepidation. The very institutions that were meant to safeguard freedom now stood on the precipice of collapse, and those in power were not prepared to relinquish control without a fight. Rumors began circulating that the old guard, chief among them, Chief Justice Hargrove 2.0, was orchestrating a counteroffensive to reclaim lost authority. Leaked memos hinted at covert meetings and secret directives designed to clamp down on the digital uprising. The tension was palpable, as if the entire city were holding its breath in anticipation of the next move. One humid evening, as digital protest messages scrolled across giant LED billboards in the downtown district, a clandestine meeting was held in a secure underground bunker. Activists, legal experts, and sympathetic insiders gathered to strategize their next steps. The room was dimly lit by the glow of multiple screens displaying live feeds from open tribunal and encrypted communications. "We have to be proactive," urged a prominent activist known only as Vector. "Our fight is not just about this tribunal. It's about dismantling a system that has long abused its power. Every fine, every biased ruling must be challenged. We need to push for reforms that secure our rights and preserve our voices." In the midst of these fervent discussions, Musk's own words echoed as a rallying cry. "Innovation is not the enemy of order. Repression is." His vision of a future where technology served as the guardian of free expression rather than its jailer fueled the determination of every person in that bunker. There was no turning back now. The digital uprising had become an unstoppable force, and its impact would soon reverberate through every institution of power in Neo-San Francisco and beyond. As the days turned into weeks, the pressure on the tribunal mounted. Independent investigations were launched, and the public demanded accountability. The old regime, with its archaic protocols and unyielding rigidity, began to crumble under the weight of collective indignation. For the first time in decades, the veneer of impartiality had been shattered, revealing a system rife with selective enforcement and hidden prejudices. And at the very heart of it all stood Elon Musk, a man who had harnessed the power of technology and the spirit of defiance to ignite a revolution for free speech. The transformative power of the digital uprising culminated in a watershed moment that reverberated across every echelon of society. In the days following the explosive revelations about the tribunal's systematic bias, a cascade of reforms swept through Neo-San Francisco like a tidal wave. The city, once governed by opaque protocols and unchallenged authority, now found itself at the forefront of a new era defined by transparency, accountability, and unfettered free expression. At the helm of this revolution stood Elon Musk, whose audacious challenge to the old guard had sparked a chain reaction of change. The Neo-Freedom Accord, meticulously drafted by Dr. Elena Reyes and her team, had been ratified by an overwhelming majority of the City Council. This groundbreaking document mandated the immediate suspension of all biased enforcement practices and established an independent oversight board, the Digital Rights Commission, charged with continuously monitoring all tribunal activities. The commission's formation was hailed as a triumph for democracy, a definitive statement that in the age of technology, every voice mattered. In a historic press conference broadcast live on every major platform, Musk addressed a sea of reporters, activists, and citizens. Standing before a futuristic podium adorned with holographic displays of the newly ratified accord, he spoke with the conviction of a man who had faced down the forces of repression and emerged victorious. "Today," he proclaimed, "we have redefined what it means to be governed by technology. No longer will algorithms and outdated protocols dictate the terms of our freedom. We have shown that when we come together, when we leverage the power of data, innovation, and collective will, no institution is above scrutiny, no tradition beyond reform." The announcement ignited jubilation. Crowds streamed into the streets, and digital billboards illuminated the night with messages of hope and resilience. Across Neo-San Francisco, murals sprang up overnight, celebrating the victory of free expression with vibrant depictions of human diversity, creativity, and unity. The very air was alive with the promise of a future where personal identity and individuality were not only tolerated, but celebrated. Yet, even as celebrations ensued, the process of transformation continued in earnest. The Digital Rights Commission, composed of legal experts, technologists, and civic leaders, embarked on an ambitious project to overhaul every facet of the city's regulatory framework. Every tribunal ruling was to be re-examined, every fine reissued if found to be unjust, and strict guidelines were established to prevent any future abuses. Mandatory constitutional rights training was rolled out across all government agencies, ensuring that the principles of free expression were not merely theoretical ideals, but living, breathing standards of public service. Behind the scenes, Musk worked tirelessly to refine the Open Tribunal platform. Collaborating with software engineers, blockchain experts, and cybersecurity specialists, he ensured that the platform would be impervious to tampering, a digital citadel where every decision, every ruling was recorded for posterity. The platform's user interface was continually updated, incorporating feedback from citizens and activists alike, making it a truly participatory tool for democracy. When information is free, Musk declared during one of the late-night development sessions, injustice has nowhere to hide. As the reforms took root, stories of personal triumph and transformation began to emerge from every corner of the city. One such tale was that of Jamal, a veteran community organizer who had once been silenced by arbitrary fines for wearing a culturally significant headscarf. With the new policies in place, Jamal's case was revisited, and his fine was not only rescinded, but accompanied by a formal apology from the tribunal. His story, widely circulated on social media, became a symbol of the vindication of personal identity in the face of systemic oppression. In the realm of academia, professors and students at Neo-San Francisco University celebrated the reforms by organizing symposiums on the intersection of technology, law, and free expression. Papers were published detailing the historical evolution of censorship, and new courses were introduced to educate future generations on the importance of digital rights and accountability. The city's libraries and research centers buzzed with intellectual activity, as scholars debated how best to harness technology for the public good. Amid these sweeping changes, Musk continued to be a beacon of relentless innovation and fearless leadership. In one particularly moving moment, he visited a local school where children were learning to code and express themselves through digital art. As he listened to their enthusiastic descriptions of their projects, programs designed to celebrate cultural heritage, interactive installations that merged art with augmented reality, Musk's eyes shone with quiet pride. "You are the future," he told them. "Never let anyone tell you that your voice is too small or your ideas too radical. Every line of code, every brushstroke, contributes to a tapestry of freedom that is stronger than any force of oppression." The media, both traditional and digital, had a field day with the unfolding events. Headlines blared, "A new dawn for free speech," and "From Tribunal to Triumph: The Digital Revolution in Neo-San Francisco." Interviews with citizens and reform advocates flooded the airwaves, and debates on public policy dominated forums around the globe. Even international leaders began to take note, with several metropolitan areas expressing interest in adopting similar transparency measures and oversight mechanisms. In the final days of this transformative period, a grand celebration was organized in the heart of the city. On a vast plaza illuminated by a constellation of holographic projections, thousands gathered for a public festival celebrating free expression and technological progress. Music, art, and impromptu speeches filled the air, each performance a testament to the enduring human spirit. At the center of the celebration, a monument was unveiled, a towering sculpture that fused elements of circuitry and classical design. symbolizing the union of technology and humanity. Standing before the monument, Elon Musk reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. His gaze swept over the jubilant faces of people from every walk of life, each one a living embodiment of the ideals he had fought for. "Today," he said into the microphone, "we celebrate not just a victory over an outdated system, but the birth of a new era. An era where every voice is heard, every identity respected, and every innovation celebrated. Our work is far from over, but we have taken a monumental step towards a future where freedom is not the privilege of the few, but the right of all." The crowd erupted in cheers as Musk's words resonated across the plaza. In that moment, the digital uprising had not only toppled an unjust system, but it also paved the way for a society that truly embraced the limitless potential of human creativity and expression. As the festivities continued late into the night, the stars above Neo San Francisco shone with an almost tangible brilliance, a silent promise that the fight for freedom, once ignited, would burn brightly for generations to come.